Good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, guys, I'm going to get this from the get-go. This is bad. This is really bad. The BBC have produced an article, and it's actually a really good article. And this is obviously in respect to the war in Ukraine. I do think we're being primed for some sort of conscription, some sort of mandatory military service. There's no way around it now, guys. There's literally no way around this. The inevitable is marching towards us. So I'm going to lead this morning with an article from the BBC. And what I'll do is I'll share the article with you now. I'll just put it on real quick. I'll close it down, and then I will just read from that article. I don't usually do this that often, only when I see an article that's like really, really good. And this one it's a really good article, guys. So this is the article. It was released 9 hours ago. This guy here, he's wrote this article, guys. It's really good. I've not read it all. I've skimmed through it. I've read some of the I have read the Russian analysis, and the Russian analysis is spot on, guys. What they're saying now in this article is exactly what I've been saying to you guys for over a year. We need more men, and that's the reality of this conflict in Ukraine. It is going to drag Britain in. I don't see any way that this can't happen. Yesterday, we had the first announcement, the first public announcement of British soldiers killed in Ukraine. I don't feel this is going to be the last. I feel this is going to be more and more until people are just used to it. And then I'll talk about how long Britain could last. And this all comes down to the massive ammunition shortages that we have in the United Kingdom. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me just start with this article. I'm just going to start. I'm going to start on this article, guys, okay? So this is one of those videos that we're going to look back on and, because it is right. So how long Britain could really fight for if war broke out tomorrow? That's what the article's called. Russia's full-scale war in Ukraine will soon enter its fifth year. The war started in 2014, but what they're talking about is the 2022 full-scale invasion. Excuse me. Mysterious incidents of so-called hybrid warfare are mounting in Europe, increasing tensions. And the UK military chiefs have warned we must prepare for war if we want to avoid it. Absolutely right. But if the unthinkable did happen and war with Russia broke out, could the United Kingdom fight for more than just a few weeks? Normally, when somebody asks a question like that, the answer is no. We are not planning to go to war with Europe, but if Europe wants to and starts, we are ready right now, said Vladimir Putin on the 2nd of December, accusing European countries of hindering US efforts to bring peace in Ukraine. To be clear, it is extremely unlikely that the UK would ever find itself in a war with Russia on its own, unsupported by NATO allies. I agree. But Putin's words were an uncomfortable reminder that war between Russia and NATO countries, including the United Kingdom, was not as remote as people hoped. How war could look in the tech age? Well, that's odd. I've got no signal on my phone. Me neither. I'm offline. What's going on? That's the scenario, hypothetically, is just one way we could know that we're at war with Russia has begun or about to. Mobile phone interruptions are a method of war. That signal interruption could be followed by an inability to make bank payments. Guys, look, this is all stuff I've been talking about. Golden standard for electronic warfare is to cause a banking run. It's to stop people having access to their money, because that causes a financial crisis and it grinds the country to a halt. Workmen, delivery drivers, they're not going to go out and start delivering stuff if they can't, if nobody's paying them. That's the reality. And all this stuff that's happening, sorry guys, I'll put the chat on, and all this stuff that's happening right now, it is the march towards conflict, guys. It really is. There are many ways of fighting a war, not just physically destructive wave of drones, bombs, and missiles, so tragically familiar to the Ukrainian citizens. Our modern technology-driven society, highly dependent on a network of undersea cables, pipelines that connect the UK to the rest of the world, carrying data, financial transactions, and energy. Covert activities by Russian spy vessels such as the Yantar is widely believed to have scoped out these cables for potential sabotage in a time of war. So look, guys, let's just be clear here. One, that the technology is readily available to send a drone, an underwater drone, to these cables, latch onto these cables and wait for a radio signal. That radio signal would detonate the drone and then the cables would be gone. You wouldn't need to have any Russian ships or any, adverse ships around them. I would say that this has already been done, guys. I would say this has already been done. In a war, these hidden unseen actions combined with an almost inevitable attempt to blind Western satellites in space would seriously hamper the UK's ability to fight, as well as potentially wreaking havoc on civil society. Elon Musk's Starlink satellite system, guys, that is, as far as I'm concerned, the backup military signal. I don't think anybody's under any illusion that that is a backup military signal for the when World War III breaks out. At a recent conference in London entitled Fighting the Long War, organised by the Royal United Service Institutions, a Whitehall think tank, military and political figures came together to discuss whether the UK's current armed forces would be in a position to sustain a protracted conflict before they ran out of everything, from troops to ammunition to spare parts. There remains little evidence that the UK has a plan to fight a war lasting more than a few weeks. That's the reality, guys, all right? We don't have the capacity as the United Kingdom to fight a war lasting more than a couple of weeks. And I'm talking like a heavy war. We don't have the manpower. Medical capacity is limited. Reserve regeneration pipelines are slow. The British plan for mass casualty outcome appears to be based on not taking casualties. That's a big insult, guys. That is a big insult, saying that the British plan for mass casualties appears to be based on not taking casualties. It means there isn't a plan. We don't have a plan in the United Kingdom for mass casualties. With classic British understatement, he says, this could be considered an optimistic planning assumption. Guys, this is really bad, like really, really bad. And this is the BBC publishing this. Like, everybody needs to read this and understand the words, and understand what they're saying. He adds that to fight a long war, you need proper backup. It demands a second and even third echelon, personnel platforms, logistics chains that can absorb losses and continue the fight. Yet this depth is notably absent from the British force design. It absolutely is absent, guys. Now, he gives here an update, or he gives here a really good. He gives here a really good analysis of the Russian military. Listen, guys, if you've been following my channel, you guys know this sounds very familiar. So this is the first honest analysis of the Russian military I've seen published in the mainstream media. So I'm going to read this. Once I've read this Russian analysis, I'll jump onto the chat, guys, okay? So this heading is titled Russia's Low Quality Army. There are shortfalls in ammunition, artillery, vehicles, air defense, and people, with limited to no ability to regenerate units or casualties. That's the first statement. Two of the biggest military lessons to come from the Ukraine war are, firstly, that drones are now integral to modern warfare at every level. Here's the thing, guys. And secondly, mass or sheer volume of personnel and military hardware matters. What have I been saying to you guys for the longest time? Literally, what have I been saying for the longest time? You know, this is a numbers game. I've been saying that for literally, I've been maybe since 2023, I've been saying this, that this is a numbers game and we don't have the numbers. Literally go back through any one of my videos. You know, I'm not jumping on a bandwagon. I am the bandwagon. Russia's army is generally of a low quality. Its soldiers are poorly equipped, poorly led, and poorly fed. Their life expectancy in the deadly drone zone of eastern Ukraine is short. UK Defence Intelligence estimates that since the start of the full-scale invasion in 2022, the Russian army has suffered more than 1.1 million casualties. That's killed, wounded, captured, or missing. Even conservative estimates put the number of Russians killed at 150,000. Ukraine has also suffered catastrophic casualties, but numbers are hard to ascertain. But Russia has been able to draw on such a massive pool of manpower that it has so far been able to replenish at an estimated, listen to this, guys, 30,000 monthly battlefield casualties. 30,000 a month. They're the battlefield casualties, okay, of the Russians, and the Russians are managing to replenish these. The Russian economy has also been on a war footing for more than 3 years now. An economist has been placed in charge of Russia's military defense while its factories churn out even more supplies of drones, missiles, and artillery shells. Guys, honestly, if you've been following my channel, you guys know exactly what's coming, right? Listen to this. According to a recent report by the Kiel Institute for the World Economy, Russia has been producing 150 each month. Each month, Russia has been producing 150 tanks. Bear in mind, guys, that Britain has 200 tanks, and only 100 of those are operational. Only 100 of them are operational. So Russia is producing more tanks by 50% per month than we have operational. And that's per month. It's a numbers game, guys, okay? So this is what the Russians are producing every month. 150 tanks, 550 infantry fighting vehicles, 120 Lancet drones, and more than 50 artillery pieces. The UK and this is a really good article, guys, okay? The UK and most of the Western allies are simply nowhere near this point. So, you know, when you get these people, the defense ministers and all these pompous Europeans in their fancy suits saying, we can outspend the Russians. That's absolutely fine. You can outspend the Russians. We are not outproducing the Russians, guys. And this is going to be a global conflict on an industrial scale. All that's going to matter is how we can get stuff from our factories to our soldiers as quickly as possible. And the Russians are outproducing us, guys, like at a phenomenal scale, Analysts say it would take years for Western Europe's factories to come even close to matching Russia's mass production of weapons. The land war in Ukraine has shown beyond doubt that mass is absolutely vital for anybody who is going to face Russia on land. Now, I feel, and having deep reserves vastly greater in numbers than the standing regular armed forces has been shown to be essential. Guys, I've literally been saying this for the best part of a year, while everybody else has been in denial. Well, people have been in absolute denial. And they have, guys. People have been in absolute denial about what's coming. Absolute denial, beyond denial, like a phenomenal rate of denial. You know, the Russians, you know, well, everybody's been putting on these little, you know, all the politicians and Keir Starmer, you know, look, guys, it's very easy to be a tough guy when there's no threat towards you. It's very easy to be a tough guy when you know for a fact no one's going to hurt you. It's really easy. Really easy. If Keir Starmer thought he had to go and face, you know, Vladimir, like, can you imagine Keir Starmer and Vladimir Putin in a fight? You know, I think that would change things a little bit. It's very easy to be a tough guy when you don't see this urgency. So I'll just repeat that again, guys. And this is from an article from the BBC, ladies and gentlemen, okay? So according to a recent report, Russia has been producing each month. So this is not what they're producing a year. This is each month. 150 tanks, 550 infantry fighting vehicles, 120 Lancet drones, and more than 50 artillery pieces. And the UK and the Western allies, we're simply nowhere near that, guys. We're nowhere near that. Not even close. You know, we are not even close to this. Right, let me jump onto the chat, guys. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Sean, scroll to the top of the chat. Some important information. Right, where are we looking? Sean, your full stack. When's it happening, guys? Where is it happening? Oh, Lithuania has declared a state of emergency over smuggler balloons from Belarus that have been... Did I tell you guys about those balloons? Or I don't think I told... Did I tell you about those balloons? I don't know. Did I tell you about those balloons? I knew about this a while ago. I knew about this a while ago, guys. I couldn't say anything because I don't know if I said anything about the balloons. I think I said drones. I may not have said balloons because that was a friend that told me that. And maybe I shouldn't have told you guys that. I don't know. UK troops join NATO exercise in Finland for potential Russian invasion. Okay, so look, guys. Okay, with these exercises, all right. Always look at the opposite. Look at how this is perceived. All right. Yes, of course. All right. We are, here in NATO, where we get the mainstream media, and the mainstream media says, UK troops join defensive exercise in case Russia invades. In Russia, their Russian mainstream media will be saying NATO trains for invasion of Russia over the Finnish border. So you've got to see that you've got to see both sides of these. You've got to see both sides of these events. Your sound is off. Is it? I don't think it is. Okay, right. My sound is fine. Thank you, guys. Toxic Goyhole is saying the British establishment has denied the native English, Welsh, Scottish, and Northern Irish the rights and duties, and said anyone can be any one of us. Now they expect us to provide protection. Absolutely. I think, let me, hang on. %, of officers are white, while around 87% of other ranks are not. 87% of other ranks are white. So I would say there's 13% of other ranks that are, Commonwealth, from Commonwealths. So. Yeah, everybody can be everybody. So, where's the diversity in the military? And when these people come back in, when we start seeing British, these body bags coming back, guys, I'm gonna assume a high percentage of those people in those body bags are going to be white. Jan, with a fantastic picture of Gandalf, is saying, so drug addicts and religious nutters, and that's most of the new soldiers with guns. I don't know what that means, mate. I don't know what that means. Toxic Goyhole is saying, I have distance with drones and long distance hole punching. I won't lift a finger for a gaggle of pedometers. Do you have the experience with long distance hole punching on drones, or just one and the other? Millie Mono is saying good morning to you, Millie Mono. English Spook is saying, why go and fight when they're letting invaders into this country? They are not protecting our borders. These invaders can rape and kill our people. It's hard not to say that, guys. It's hard not to say that. You know, it would be very difficult to disagree with that. Munchkin is saying, morning, everyone. Does Sean not do lives on TikTok anymore? Guys, look, I used to do lives on TikTok. They just keep blocking me. I keep getting banned. I'm literally like, I say, I don't even like the last time I got banned. I don't even know why it was. Honestly, I don't even know why it was. I didn't even bother appealing it. I just said, right, okay. If they're going to keep banning me on TikTok, I'm just not going to stream on there. It makes no sense for me to keep streaming on TikTok when I'm getting banned all the time. You know, it doesn't make any sense. So, right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna. So the crux of this live stream has been a very damning report that's been out on the BBC. A very damning report that's come out from the BBC. It's a really good report as well. It's a real. I don't usually go on one single article, but this article from the BBC, guys, it's really good. I'll share this with you again quickly, and then I'll continue because the article has got some fantastic information in it, some really good information. Oh, look, guys, I will always do this. Like, I will always give my own stuff. When I see something that is really good, I will share it with you. And this is from the BBC as well. You know, it's really good from the BBC. So let me share this with you guys again. So this is the article I've been going off, guys. It's called How Long Britain Could Fight If War Broke Out Tomorrow. Now, you know, the article, where is it down here? Give me a second. Okay, they talk about Russia here, Russia's low-quality army. You know, the biggest lessons here that they've learned are that mass or sheer volume of personnel and equipment matters. Guys, you know, what have I always said? Literally, what have I always said? You get two football teams. One's the greatest the world's ever produced, and the other one, there's 1,000 of them. Who's got the best football team? It's this one with the best players and the best equipment. Who's going to put the ball in the back of the net more? It's this one because there's 1,000 of them. That's the reality, guys. Mass, 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 mass. When we talk about military production and military spending, I've been harping on and banging my head against the brick wall with this, guys. Okay. You get these look at like these two here, like Keir Starmer. He'll be like somebody. I mean, he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to war. Keir Starmer will be told that that Britain can outspend Russia, which is true. We can outspend Russia, but nobody cares about money, guys. We care about stuff: artillery, bombs, tanks, planes, trains, automobiles. Guns, 5.56, 7.62, 5.45, 0.50 long, 7.62, 12.7 millimeter. That's what's going to win the war, all right? Not burning money, literally, all right? So Britain has spent 5.5 billion on an armored fighting vehicle, and it doesn't work. It can't be used. 5.5 billion gone. While Russia, per month, I'm not making this up, guys. This is from this article here, guys. This is from the Kiel Institute. Russia produces 150 tanks. This is each month. This is not per year. Bear in mind, guys, Britain has 200 tanks. And and 100 of them don't work. So Britain only has 100 tanks that are operational. And of those, I would say they're of questionable operation. They're of questionable operating capacity. So while Britain has 100 operational tanks, Russia is producing 150 tanks every month. So it doesn't matter that the British tanks are better. It literally, over the space of a year, Britain, one British tank, if the British tank attritional rate, let's just pretend, all right, that British tanks, and this is ridiculous, guys, all right, this is absolutely ridiculous, all right? Let's just say that one British tank could take on 150 Russian tanks. Let's just pretend that's the scenario, all right? Over time, the Russians are still going to win because they're producing more per month. So the Russians are producing 150 tanks per month, 550 infantry fighting vehicles, 120 Lancet drones, and more than 50 artillery pieces. That's just a snippet, guys, all right? There's Shahed drones, there's MAB drone, what are MABs? Glide bombs, there's all sorts of stuff. And here, look, this is the first realistic analysis. That sentence, guys, that sentence there, that's the sentence that everybody needs to understand. The UK and most of its Western allies, without the United States, are simply not anywhere near this point. We're not, guys. We're nowhere near this. We're not even close. We don't have the capacity to produce this sort of stuff. So when everybody's coming up there, everybody's saying, "Oh, but Sean, we've got this, we've got that, we've got great special forces." Yes, we have, but we don't have them in the numbers, guys. We don't have them in the numbers. And this war is going to be a numbers game, guys. I promise you, this is a numbers game. It's going to drag everybody into it. We're going to be dragged into this, guys, okay? We're going to be dragged into this. Yeah, Toxic Goy Hole. All logistics is going to need a shotgun crew for standard anti-drone cover. Yeah, they're spending all this money. They're spending all this money on, they're spending all this money on, on anti-drones and lasers. It's a waste of money, guys. It's a waste of money. Give everybody shotguns. That's what you need to do. Give people shotguns. It's the only realistic defense against these drones. The power that you need to supply a laser doesn't work. Stephen is saying 100 men did it against 4,000. Oh, it's 4,000 Zulus. I agree. Actually, the Rorke's Drift, as you're talking about, that's not actually true. That was massively. Okay. So Rorke's Drift was one of the earliest cases of propaganda. Look into it. So there was Rorke's Drift, and then a few weeks before Rorke's Drift, or maybe even a week before Rorke's Drift, the British military got absolutely turned over by the Zulus. A couple of miles away. What they decided to do is, rather than report on that, the British military decided to fabricate. Well, they didn't fabricate it exactly. They exaggerated it massively. This is one of the earliest cases of media manipulation. Go and look into Rorke's Drift, guys. Go and look into Rorke's Drift. Right, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, guys. Hyper Sniper. Producing trash tanks doesn't win you a massive conflict, which is not going to happen anyway. Okay. Right. Okay, right. Okay. I don't even know where to go with this. Okay, so Hyper Sniper. Are you saying that one British tank can take out 150 Russian tanks? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying, Hyper Sniper? Is that what you're saying, that one British tank can take out more than 150 Russian tanks in a wanna? They don't even have 150 rounds in them. How many rounds does a British tank carry? How many? Okay, so, okay, right. So what you're saying, all right, it's like, it's physically impossible. Do you know what? It's not just unlikely, it's physically impossible for a British tank to take out 150 Russian tanks. Do you know why? Do you guys know why? Do you know what? I'll show you why. So when people are saying, right, that better kit and equipment, yeah, we've got these better tanks, our tanks are better, that's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. They are better. A Challenger 2 tank carries around 49 to 50 rounds for its main 120mm rifled gun. So let's just say that, I mean, what's going to happen? Like in a battle, so the British tank comes up against 150. I mean, what are the British tanks going to do? Are they going to get one round to take out 3 tanks and not miss? Is that what we're saying? Is that what we're saying? It's not going to happen, guys. It's not going to happen. Absolutely not going to happen. I understand. Better kit is better, and it always will be. Better kit will always be better. That's because it's better. It gets to a point where, you know, mass overtakes that. You can just throw these things at it, guys. You can just throw these things at it. Right, let me get back onto this article, guys, because this article's fun. It really is a good article. It's from the BBC, okay? So, how national service conversations have backfired, which is going to lead to conscription. Because let's look at this logically, guys, all right? If this article is saying that we need more men, unless men are joining the military because they don't want to, how do you deal with that situation, guys? How do you deal with it? France and Germany have both recently moved to revived a system of voluntary military service. The UK's former head of the army, General Sir Patrick Saunders, is he still a general if you leave the army? I don't know. Suggested in 2004, the year he retired, that the UK should train what he called a citizen army to fight a land war in the future. An idea that was shot down by Number 10. I think it's a cultural thing within the UK, says Ed Arnold, a senior research fellow. So if you look at the states that are now looking towards military service, like Sweden, France, Germany, and it's not mentioned here, but Poland as well, they are states who culturally still have an institutional memory of when they had that system. We haven't had national service in the United Kingdom since the 1960s, and attempts to have that national conversation around it have pretty much backfired. The reality is our armed forces cannot survive on a diet of government spin. Fucking hell. Guys, honestly, I can't believe I'm reading this in the BBC. I can't believe this is in the BBC, honestly. Like, it doesn't matter how much government spin you put on this when you're sending one British tank. Come on, guys, let's do this for king and country. You know, when you're sending one tank against 150 Russian tanks. How many rounds have we got? 49. How many tanks are there? 150. Aim straight, boys. It's not going to work. It's not going to work, guys. It's not going to work physically. They don't have the They don't have the ammunition. It's not about strategy. It's not about research and development. It's not about who's got the best tanks. It's about who's got fucking more. So, like John Jones, right? John Jones is the OG. Like, some people can argue that Khabib was the best fighter. You know, I'm saying, like, for me, John Jones is the best mixed martial arts fighter that there's ever been. I think he's like, he for me, he's fantastic. Nobody gets in a ring with him. Like, nobody's beating him, especially not prime John Jones. If John Jones had to fight against 150 people, he's going to fucking lose. Yes, he's probably going to knock the first person out. Cool. They ain't getting up. He's probably going to knock the next person out as well. By the time he's done 2 punches, they're going to be on him. the 148 of him are going to be on him, and it's going to be a bad day for John Jones. That doesn't mean John Jones isn't a better fighter than all of those people. What it means is there's too fucking many of them. So stop saying that, yeah, cheap tanks are no match against... I agree, they're not. But thousands of cheap tanks are. The reality is our armed forces, guys, cannot survive on a diet of government spin. They can't. And that's what you're getting. You're getting government spin. Over the horizon spending commitments and hollow rhetoric. Sir Ben Wallace, who was the Defence Secretary in the Conservative government 2019 to 2023, told the BBC. Responding to this, a spokesperson for the current Labour Defence Secretary, John Healey, told me, this characterization is baseless. Like, honestly, guys, like, I don't know what people are thinking, but like, we don't produce enough. We don't have enough manpower, and we don't seem to understand that. This article from the BBC, though, guys, it's hitting all the nails on the head. We increased defence spending by $5 billion this year alone, signed 1,000 major contracts since the election, and increased MOD spending with British businesses by 6% above inflation that year. Okay, let me share this with you. So this is exactly the bullshit. This is exactly the bullshit statements I tell you guys to look out for, okay? This is exactly the bullshit statements, okay? So look, this is what a spokesperson, well, as I understand it, this is what a spokesperson for the Labour government has said. Look at the words, guys. Honestly, this article is hitting all the nails on the head. So, I'm not jumping on a bandwagon. I've been saying this all the time. We increased, so they're saying, look, we don't have enough stuff. We don't have enough stuff. We're not producing enough stuff. And the government's response is, we have increased defence spending by $5 billion this year alone, signed 1,000 major contracts since the election, and increased MOD spending with British businesses by 6% above inflation in the last year. Okay, but what are you producing? You see where I'm going with this, guys? You can spot the bullshit now. Now, this reporter who asked this question should have said, okay, but what are you producing? Because like it says up here, and it's true, like it says up here somewhere, and it's true, the Russians are producing far more than we are. And it doesn't matter what people are spending, guys. I promise you, it doesn't matter what people are spending. We just spent $5 billion on a vehicle that doesn't work. So, that $5 billion there that $5 billion, it's gone. We didn't get anything for that. And I would say, so let's think about this, guys. Let's do the Raven maths, all right? Let's just do the Raven maths, all right? So let's just say we increased defence spending by $5 billion this year alone, all right? They paid for the Ajax vehicle that was $5.5 billion. It didn't work. It can't be put into service because it keeps injuring people. So basically what they're saying is we're spending $500 million less. Tell me I'm wrong, guys. Tell me the Raven maths is wrong. He points to new defence agreements with Norway, a $300 million investment in the Royal Navy's laser weapon. You guys know what I think about lasers. A $9 billion investment into armed forces housing. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Armed forces housing, $9 billion. You see, this is where the money goes, look, and soldiers need somewhere decent to live. This should have been happened a long time ago. That $9 billion investment into armed forces housing, that's not going on tanks, guns, bombs, trains, planes, and automobiles. That's going on houses. That shouldn't be happening. We should be spending money on guns, tanks, bombs, armored fighting vehicles, artillery, 5.56. That's the stuff we need. You know, and you guys have seen it now, right? It's a false metric. I tell you all the time, don't I? I say to you guys all the time, I say, when these people say, you know, when the government, you know, when people say, oh, we're spending more than, it doesn't matter what you're spending. Absolutely not. Anyway, but this is not about party politics. It's about whether the UK defence has been underfunded for so long that it has now reached the point where the country is dangerously vulnerable in several areas, notably air defence. I'll let you into a little secret, guys. We don't have any. There are also problems of timing and inefficiency. Yeah, do you think these big prime contractors are interested in about delivering on time or under budget? Absolutely not. Defence contracts often take years to come to fruition. So these lasers that the British military is spending, I don't know, how much was it? Was it 9 billion or something? I can't remember. 300 million. These lasers, you know, and again, you know, they say we're spending 900, what was it, 900 million? 300 million. 300 million on lasers to combat drones. Yeah, to combat these drones, right? These ones, because that was when when it went to procurement. So the military wanted to take out these drones. They're big, they're expensive. You can take them down with absolutely fine. It's futile trying to take these down with a laser, guys. And what they'll do is they'll send these first to overwhelm your laser. So your laser, you know, your laser's overwhelmed. Then they'll send these to take out your laser, and then they can fly these wherever they want. Lasers are pointless, guys. They're not. It's ridiculous. It's so absurd. Billions of pounds have been spent on Ajax, an overdue armoured vehicle project still beset with problems. Meanwhile, NATO officers have been warning Russia could be in a position to launch an attack on a NATO country within 3 to 5 years. And if you look at the amount that they're building, that war machine needs to keep going. At the end of the Cold War, in 1990, when I was a young infantry captain, this is not me talking, this is somebody else talking, I don't know who he is. When I was a young infantry captain in the Army Reserves, the UK was spending 4.1% of GDP on defence. The following year, it deployed over 45,000 troops to help evict Iraq President Saddam Hussein's invading force from Kuwait in Operation Desert Storm. Today, with multiple pressures on the economy, and the government is striving to meet a target of 2.5% of GDP. But look, guys, all right? If the government are look, guys, it's purely numbers, right? If the government have spent 9 billion on houses, all right, and look, guys, the military, they do need somewhere decent to live. It's disgusting, all right? If they're putting that they're spending 9 billion on, you know, housing contracts, I'm not going to speculate that they're given to Angela Rayner's dodgy mates. They're clearly not. They're clearly won in the best way possible. You know, 9 billion on houses, 5.5 billion on an armored vehicle that doesn't work. So 5.5 billion wasted. How much are they actually spending on stuff? You know. Meanwhile, Russia spends close to 7% of GDP. Now, I know the metric is not, you know, you can't really compare them. You've got to compare what they're producing, and Russia's producing a lot more. On paper, the British Army numbers around 74,000, but Ed Arnold points out that once you subtract medically non-deployable soldiers, defence attaches around the world, and others not part of formed units, then its actual deployable strength is 54,000. That's less than the average casualties Russia takes in 2 months. And of those 54,000, we did the Raven maths, you only have 19,000 that are frontline infantry. We need more men. In the event of a war, says Justin Crump, the British Army would most likely be degraded, incapable of fighting effectively within weeks. Once committed, though, he adds, much depends on the form of the conflict. Weeks, guys, we're going to be depleted and gone. Some commentators are saying that Britain is already at war with Russia. They're referring to what's known as hybrid or grey zone warfare, which includes events like often deniable, such as cyber attacks, disinformation, and the alleged launching of drones close to airports and military bases in NATO countries. But worryingly, they pale compared to the crisis that would be triggered by a Russian military attack on a NATO country, especially if it involved seizing territory and people being unalived. There are several flashpoints where NATO military chiefs fear Putin could, if he were allowed to achieve his military aims in Ukraine, could eventually move on to seek new targets for aggression. One potential target is the Suwalki corridor, or the Suwalki gap, whatever you want to call it. It is a 100-kilometer stretch that borders between Poland, Lithuania, both NATO countries. This is a separate. That's all that separates Russia's ally from Belarus from the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad on the Baltic coast. Seizing that border and opening up a route along it would allow, in theory, give Moscow direct access to its strategic naval bases, which is true. Right, let me jump onto the chat, guys. Aussie already depopulated. Haha, 27 million off on the coast. I don't know what that means. Right, guys, am I jumping into a conversation here halfway through? Sorry, guys. Right, let me jump up and get some of these chats. Daniel Beast is saying, using Ukraine as an example is just poor. We can see everything Russia has and where it's made. They simply can't take out Russian stuff because they don't possess that equipment. Okay. I don't know what that means. Okay. So first of all, the Ukrainians absolutely do have long-range strike capability. They absolutely do. They've done a lot of strikes, long-range strikes into Russia. It's not as simple as people think, being able to take out factories that are, hundreds of miles inland Russia. Daniel is again. I said I was a tanker in the army, and I'll say this: in modern warfare, air superiority is everything. A Russian tank wouldn't show a minute on a battlefield if this was a US war. Guys, look, this is not going to be a US war. All right, the United States are not going to be involved. All right, mark my words: the United States will not be involved. Go back, literally go back, like my first videos. The United States are not going to get involved. The United States are going to be involved in the Middle East. Yes, there's a lot of faff. There's a lot of faff around the. There's a lot of faff around Venezuela at the moment. There's a lot of faff around Venezuela at the moment. But the reality is, the main event for the United States is Iran. It is the Middle East. And the United States don't need anyone else to go in there with them. In fact, if anything, it's just gonna too many chefs ruin. Too many chefs spoil the broth. I think that's the case. And that's what would happen. So the United States, the United States to get their kit and equipment to Europe, they're going to have to take that over like a big sea journey. It's going to be a nightmare for them. Logistically, it's going to be expensive. All that stuff's never going to come back. And why would they do that? Literally, why would they do that when there's going to be another war that's going to have to be fought in Iran? So the United States are absolutely not going to be involved in this conflict, guys. All right. The United States are not going to be involved in this conflict. Equally, for the Europeans to assist the Americans in the Middle East, they would have to take all their stuff on a big, on a big trip. They don't have to, logistically, it makes sense. You know, people are looking at the, people have started this war now with logistics in mind. All these logistic routes to Europe, to Ukraine, they're all land corridors. They can all be done by train, by truck, by haulage companies. You know, you don't need these big, these big naval fleets moving your kit and equipment. You can literally do this by, you can literally do this by land. Hang on, what was that? Banned again, he's saying, Sean, reading BBC stuff. Yeah, guys, listen, I understand I am reading BBC stuff, but this article I'm reading from the BBC, it's absolutely brilliant. You know, it is absolutely brilliant. Fizz Gig Malmai, hello Fizzgig Malmai, is saying absolutely stupid of people thinking they can just wait because Trump and the American army are going to do something. It's astounding. Yeah, it is, guys. It's absolutely it's not astounding, guys. It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. Marky Irv is saying the US has also got to keep an eye on China-Taiwan situation, which hopefully never happens. Yeah, I agree, guys. It is. Hang on, give me a second. I agree, guys. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Right, I'm going to jump back onto this article. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining, listen, guys, if you're joining for the first time, we are talking about a Britain that is now conscription primed. The BBC are priming, yeah, Donna Prepper. Donna is saying, Sean, you said 14 days in the header. Why? Okay, so I've given this context of 14 days, and this is a high-end estimate. There's been a lot of, one of the articles I was going, I'll share this with you. So I've been looking at a lot of articles about how long Britain would last, and I've been going, it's very difficult. Like, it's really difficult to give a battlefield estimate on how long a country would last because there's so many different aspects. So what I did is I went with the ammunition production and ammunition, and I've gone with ammunition. Now this article here, I'll put this in, I will link this article below. It's quite a long article, and it talks about the deficiencies in the ammunition basically for the British military. Now, this article, I think that article actually says ammunition stocks would be depleted in 8 days in a high intensity conflict. I've gone with 2 weeks because first of all, a high intensity conflict, you can. It depends what we mean by high intensity conflict. But that article there says that we would be depleted in 8 days. There are other articles out there saying it would take 2 weeks. So I have gone with the high end estimate because I thought 8 days was. I personally thought that 8 days was unrealistic. So in direct response to your question, Donna, I said we have 14 days because we have 14 days of ammunition. The British military has, as far as I'm concerned, the British military would last 14 days before they are depleted, before their ammunition is depleted. We can't produce the ammunition as quickly as it's being fired. Jack is saying the BBC article is brilliant for Laughing My House, but for a first time viewer, I'm not impressed. Jack, okay, so I'm going with this article from the BBC because it's hitting a lot of things, all right? And the things are correct, i.e., Russia is outproducing Britain. It is. Russia is outproducing Britain. They are absolutely outproducing Britain. Russia are outproducing NATO minus the United States. Russia are producing 150 tanks a month. That's true, guys. One of the reasons I go with I go with BBC. It's not because I like them. It's not because I'm a BBC fan. It's because if I go with the BBC and I share a BBC article, I can't get done for fake news and I can't get my video banned for fake news. I'll be quite clear. The BBC are very biased. But this article they produced, it's really good. You know, it is really good. This article they produced is really good. And look, guys, I'll say it when an article is good. And this is a very good, a very based article. Right, let me continue, guys. Let me continue. So I just want to give some context now that the previous hostile acts on the UK soil. So the UK may well be Putin's enemy number one, having been one of Ukraine's staunchest allies, having pushed for more powerful weapons to be delivered to help its defense. Hostile acts on the UK have been linked to President Putin, including the murder with radioactive polonium-210 of former KGB officer Alexander Litvinenko in 2006. A public inquiry concluded that Putin probably approved his assassination and the attempted murder of former Russian military intelligence officer turned MI6 agent Sergei Skripal in Salisbury in 2018, using good old Novichok. There have been historical, there's been a lot of historical spats between Britain and Britain and Russia. Again, we're this big and Russia's this big, but there's no one size fits all answer to what the United Kingdom is actually capable of, because there are so many different situations under which it could be challenged by Russia. I think that is a fair statement. As a society, the UK, unlike Poland, Finland, and the Baltic states, is unquestionably not ready for war. Even serious preparations for such an eventuality would be both expensive and unpopular and politically risky. So what they're saying there in this article is we're not ready and we're too scared to be ready. But I do believe this article is priming people ready for some sort of conscription, some sort of mandatory military service. Jack, I think you need to watch more of my live streams, mate, because that's what we've been saying on this channel. I think you need to watch more of my live streams because that's what we've been saying on this channel. Right, ladies and gentlemen, the crux of the video has been this, all right? Britain's not ready. The media, I believe, is starting to prime people in Britain for conscription. Britain's not ready. We have no ammunition. We need more men. We need mass. We need more people. We need more people to do this, to do this war. That's what the media is starting to prime us for. If you guys remember, I gave my prediction of we would have some sort of military, and it's not going to be conscription in the United Kingdom. It will be something. I don't know what they're going to call it. Voluntary military service, mandatory military assistance, national service. I don't know what they're going to call it, but in February it will start. That's what I'm saying, guys. That's my speculation. In February, I believe that this will start, guys. All right, because let me share with you. Let me just share these bits again. Hang on, give me a second. Right, let me share this. So I've been saying this all along, guys. I've not been changing my tune. I've not changed anything. Two of the biggest military lessons to come out of the Ukraine war are, firstly, that drones are now integral to modern warfare at every level, and secondly, that mass or sheer volume of personnel and military hardware matters. I've been saying this all the time, guys. I'd probably say this in my sleep. Imagine if you had two football teams. Guys, I know there's people on here who are new to the channel, okay? This is my analogy I've been giving for over a year, all right? When it comes to the Ukraine war, you know, and we're trying to do side-by-side comparisons, the analogy that I give is this, all right? The analogies that I give is this, all right? On one side, imagine a football team, all right? On one side, you've got the best football players that the world has ever seen. They've got the best food, the best accommodation. They're all rested. They've got the best football boots. They've got the best kit. They're well trained. The best 11 football players the world can ever produce, any timeline. They're the guys on that side, all right? On the other side of the football pitch, to come out to play them, you know, there's 1,000 people. They don't have, some of them are wearing shorts, some of them are in suits, some of them are in jeans, some of them have trainers, some of them have boots on, some of them have just come from work. It's an absolute ragtag. Which one has the best football team? Of course, it's these guys. They have all the best stuff. Which one is going to put the ball in the back of the net more? This one, because there's 1,000 of them. It's a numbers game, guys. And as the article here says, you know, mass is important. And we don't have the mass in Europe, guys. And the Russians can keep pushing. The Russians can keep pushing those conscripts. What's the other thing? Here we are. According to a recent report by the Kiel Institute for the World Economy, Russia has been producing each month around 150 tanks, 550 infantry fighting vehicles, and 120 Lancet drones, and more than 50 artillery pieces. The UK and most of its Western allies, i.e. without the United States, are simply not anywhere near this point. And that's the reality, guys, okay? We are literally sending one of our Challenger tanks against 150 Russian tanks. And I know you guys think, I know you guys, you know, I know some people that have watched a lot of movies. You know, I know a lot of people who've watched movies think that it's possible, you know, one British tank against 150 Russians, and that's absolutely fine. Bear in mind that British Challenger 2 tanks only carry a maximum 50 rounds. So I don't know how they're going to take those out. I really don't know how they're going to take those out, guys. I don't know how it's going to happen. Russia is outproducing the West with munitions also. Yeah, absolutely, guys. You know, they're just outproducing. They are absolutely outproducing. Lone tank can't take out 150, but our squadron or regiment of around 10 to 14 tanks with crew skill, support, and tactic can inflict massive losses. Guys, look, okay, so what I was saying is one tank can't take out 150 tanks. Okay, so in this context, it would be 10 tanks versus 10 times 150, so 1,500 tanks, all right? Yes, I don't deny that there will be massive, guys, I don't deny that there will be massive, initially there will be massive losses, but how, do you know what, guys, give me a second. Oh, right, okay. Oh my God, it's worse. It's worse than I thought. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm giving you the maths, right? right? Okay, let me share this with you. Let me share this with you real quick. So I just asked AI how many British Challenger tanks. I just asked AI how many British Challenger tanks are being produced. I'll show you the response. New production of Challenger 2 tanks is at 0. And it's actually worse than I thought. New production of Challenger 2 tanks is not happening. Instead, the UK is upgrading 148 of its new Challenger to the new Challenger 3 standard. But built by Rheinmetall but these won't be ready till 2030. So the British so this won't be ready till 2030. And what they're doing is they're upgrading their current tanks. So we don't have any tank production in the UK. We're not producing any tanks. What we're doing is upgrading the old ones. So here's the thing, guys, right? Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing about attrition rates, right? When you send in, let's say you send in 150 tanks against, I don't know, 10 or 15 British tanks, all right? And let's just say the British tanks win, but they lose 5 tanks, whatever. Those 5 tanks are gone, but the Russians next month will produce another 150 to send again. And then the next month, and then the next month, and then the next month. So while, yes, you know, British tank squadrons with their training and their equipment and their technology, guys, look, I'm Team GB. I'm Team GB. The numbers don't add up, guys. The numbers don't add up. You know, the maths. I don't know, guys. I still consider 1 + 1 is 2. You know, if we want to get double talk and say 2 + 2 is 5, that's absolutely fine. You know, if we want to pretend that 2 + 2 is 5, that's absolutely fine, guys. All right. The maths doesn't add up, guys. It's nowhere near. All right. If the Russians, right, riddle me this, riddle me that, Batman. Okay. Riddle me this, riddle me that, Batman. Okay. If the Russians are producing 150 tanks per month and Britain are producing no more tanks, who's going to win that tank battle? Doesn't matter how well equipped these tanks are, guys. It really doesn't. Amelia Miller is saying, do you still think conscription is going to be in February or sooner, given all the talk in the media? Yeah. So first of all, Amelia, I do think February is the date. I am using the word conscription in the thumbnail. I don't think the government will use the word conscription. But what's happening in the media right now is this pump. It's the priming. It's the priming to get public support, because the only what people say, oh God, join the military, go and fight. I don't want to, you know, we don't want to lose. We don't want to lose. So yeah, I do think there's going to be an announcement in February. All the data points are pointing towards, you know, all the data points are pointing towards that, all the data points are pointing towards that direction. I do think it's going to be in February. And again, it might not be, you know, in fact, it's almost certainly not going to be Keir Starmer standing up there and saying, every young able man has got to join the military, because I don't think he would do that. There's going to be something, though, because they need to bolster those numbers. They need to get that manpower up, because we don't have enough men, like I've been saying the longest time. Toxic Goyle is saying, knowledge is power, people. This is why the establishment limits your access to it and prohibits the sharing of some knowledge. Why has the Met Police bought 22 riot vans from Ukraine? Have you seen them? Shocking. No, I haven't seen them. No, I haven't. Well, I can only assume it's to stop people protesting. Right, let me jump down, guys. Sean, drones can destroy tanks. Have they become sitting ducks in this new style of warfare? They have and they haven't. You know, they have and they haven't. There's still a time and a place for drones. People think. Okay, so these are the ones, right, that we've all seen. You know, taking out tanks. They're not okay. The numbers. Then okay. How do I go? Where do I go with this? They have and they haven't. Yes, drones can destroy tanks, but it's not as overwhelming as you think, because the So what they're doing is they're using, so these drones here, they're using fiber optic cables to control those drones. Okay. And then you get one operator. You get one operator like with a control pad and the goggles on, and he's flying FPV. Now, if you think you're gonna strike that tank at 20 kilometers, that means you have to have one operator operating one drone for at least 20 minutes to get to that tank. All right. That's actually a long time in warfare. That's actually a long time in warfare for one person. And you're never going to use one drone. Obviously, we've all seen the pictures. We've all seen the pictures online of, one of these $200 drones smashing into the tank. But what you don't see online is all those drones failing. The fiber optic cable getting snagged. The drone, the propellers on the drone hitting a tree and it going down. So there's a lot of failures as well with those drones. So it's not the case that a tank is being taken out by one $300 drone, but it also is the case that that's happening, because there's a lot of things that it's not a very successful hit rate. I would say that, the hit rate is maybe 30% or something. Now, so yes, cheap drones can destroy tanks, but it's not as quick as you think, because you have to hit you have to hit them in the right place. You have to double it up or triple it up. And what you then do is you have to have a lot of people then operating these drones. Now, if you've got artillery, if you've got good artillery, 3 people can fire a shit ton of artillery rounds and they can just keep that going sustainably. So yes and no. They're not sitting ducks in this style of warfare because the drones are not that the drones are not that reliable yet. But equally they do work as well. Right. Let me jump down, guys. Shaky Jakey saying, Google these 22 vehicle crews bought from Ukraine, Sean. I'm sure, Sean, I've not seen them, guys. I've not seen them. Right, I'm going to do it now. 22. What company is it? Is it Ukrainian Armor? I know Ukrainian Armor do some good, they do some good vehicles. No, I can't find anything. I've literally just Googled. Right, right, okay, so let me take out the word Ukrainian. Nothing. Where's that being reported? Where's that being reported? I can't find it, guys. I can't find it. Right, guys, I'm just jumping up. German armor was so effective from combined arms all working together. Stukas were critical. Sean, Russia won't invade the UK as there's no landways. If anything, would be drones and missiles. My point is, would you definitely see Poland as being... Yeah, guys, look, absolutely. I've said this all along, literally, like all along. If anywhere is going to see Russian boots on the ground outside of Ukraine, it's going to be Poland first. Like, that is my analysis. Like, that's my professional opinion. If you guys were paying me for that analysis, I would tell you, I'd say, look, guys, anywhere's going to be next, it's going to be Poland. There's so much, there's so much stuff in Poland. There's no case use for the Russians trying to attack Britain with like a green military option. It makes zero sense. when they can pay criminal gangs to go and destroy stuff. They can use asymmetric warfare. They can set substations on fire. All of that stuff is deniable, you know. All of that stuff is deniable. If anywhere is going to be next, guys, it's going to be the Polish. It's going to be the Polish. I may be going to Poland, actually, next week. Next week or the week after? I think next week I may be going to Poland. Do you think digital ID and currency will be used to control people if they refuse to conscript? Yeah, so that's how the Russians do it. So the Russians, they have like look, guys, you guys think that the Russians are not part of this like move towards digitalization? The Russians already have digital ID, and they get conscripted by their they get on their app. It just goes beep, 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 beep. Yeah, you're in the army now. Oh, right. Oh, the Kanishna. Right, listen, guys. Let me look and see if there's any comments. Band again is saying, face it, we can't beat Russia. Look, guys, I've been saying this for the longest time, and I'll say it again. NATO, as it is now, can't beat the Russians. It's not possible. We need mass. We need to do look, guys, and whether you guys agree with this or not, I personally don't. But if we were to beat the Russians, we shouldn't be in a war anyway, guys. Like, wars are ridiculous. 10 years after this war's over, everything will be back to normal. Nobody will care. People will be rich and people will be dead. That's the reality. So all wars are ridiculous. Rather than fighting each other, we should be building spaceships, going into space, colonizing the moon, putting people on Mars, maybe a floating city around Venus, rotating habitats. That's what we should be doing instead of spending billions on tanks and guns to kill each other. It's ridiculous, guys. It's so futile. Without mass conscription of migrants, literally, guys, that is the only thing we can do right now. All these migrants that are coming over, they need to be conscripted. They need to be conscripted and sent out as conscripts, because the way the Russians are using conscripts, it has been a massive eye-opener for me as an analyst. It's been a massive eye-opener as an analyst, looking at how these conscripts work, because it is genius. It is genius to send in conscripts. It really is. Like, I think we did the maths. And it costs. What did we say? I think it's the same to train one British soldier, or it costs the same to train 50 conscripts, which is no training. You just give them a rifle and send them. To train and equip 50 conscripts and one British soldier. That's the realities, guys. And again, that was rudimental Raven maths, RRM. So when you think about this and how they're using conscripts, the Russians, they're not, they're poorly armed, poorly fed, poorly led. They're literally going to be land pirates. Imagine it now, guys. Right? Just imagine wherever you live. Imagine your hometown, right? And imagine that hometown being in Poland or Lithuania or Finland. I think it's going to be Poland, but through Belarus. So imagine Poland, right? Imagine you live in a town in Poland, a little village or whatever, little housing estate in the, in the countryside or whatever. 50 marauding Russian conscripts with rifles come into your village and just start taking whatever they want, doing things to your women, using those rifles any way they want. That's the future of the war, guys, in Europe. You can just leave them, because you know what? You don't have to supply them with food. You don't have to supply them with vehicles, because they're stealing it on the way. It's brutal, guys, but it's a fantastic tactic. So while here in the West, you know, we're sending them any shiny new Land Cruisers, Land Rovers. You know, they've got their Land Rovers that you have to have original parts from Land Rover, that there's supply chain issues. You know, they've got their rations, they've got their water, you know, they've got that supply chain going. You've got 150 Russian land pirates raping and pillaging their way through Europe. They go to a village, they steal all the cars, they steal all the food, and then they move to the next village. Which one of those is the more efficient way? It's brutal, guys. It's fucking brutal, but this is war. This is going to be a global conflict on an industrial scale that people are just not ready to stomach. You know, and that's the way things are, you know, that's the way things have been going, you know. That's the way things have been going. Oh, yeah. And I didn't realize as well, I said that I thought we had 200 British tanks. We don't. We have 148 British tanks. So the dynamic's different. So let's just share. Let me share this with you. So I thought we had 200 British tanks, right? I thought that we had 200 British tanks. We don't. We have, where are we? Yeah. So when I was talking about this, I actually thought, and I thought that we had 200 British tanks. We don't. We, in Britain, and again, you can, you know, I know I'm using tanks as a, you know, as an analysis because it's easy to visualize tanks, right? You know, but there's a lot more things that the Russians are producing. So in Britain, I just Googled this. Britain has a fleet of 148 existing Challenger main battle tanks, MBTs. And we're not producing anymore. So we only have 148 tanks, all right? And of those, I would speculate at least half of them don't work. You know, that's just from my knowledge of how the military systems work, all right? So here in the United Kingdom, we have 148 tanks and we're not building any more, all right? Just look at that there. I'm not making this up. Russia has been producing each month 150 tanks. Yes, okay, of a lower quality. But each month, Russia is producing more tanks than the British military have. That's from these numbers, guys, okay? 150 tanks, 550 fighting vehicles, infantry fighting vehicles, 120 Lancet drones, and more than 50 artillery pieces. You know, it's unbelievable. The numbers don't add up, guys. The numbers really don't add up. It's unbelievable. Listen, guys, if you're joining for the first time, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, guys. Okay, hit those buttons down below. Jackie's saying Russia does not have the ambition. In my opinion, Ukraine was an existential threat that has documented history of our BS over negotiations with no expansion extension from the West is to delete the Patriots. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff here. So first of all, Russia definitely does. Okay, where do we go with this, Jackie? Where do we go with this, Jack? Okay, so I'm going to go back to 1962, right? 1962 was the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, I could argue that the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis was when that was the real start to the beginning of the fall of the Soviet Empire, the Soviet Union. Vladimir Putin was like an 11-year-old. I think he was 11 at that time, and you're at a very impressionable age when you're 11. So Vladimir Putin will have watched, like our Gen Z are now, or Gen Alpha, you know, like our Gen Z are now, they're very impressionable ages, and they're watching this stuff, and they're getting angry. They're getting that fire in their stomach. Same goes to Vladimir Putin when he was 11. He was watching the Cuban Missile Crisis. He saw Nikolai Khrushchev turn the ships round. And everybody hailed Nikolai Khrushchev as the man who saved the world. But the reality is he bottled it. He absolutely bottled it. And Vladimir Putin will have seen Nikolai Khrushchev bottle it. Now, Vladimir Putin's grown up and he's witnessed in his life the fall of one state after another, and the absolute shrinkization of the Soviet Empire, you know, to what we are now as Russia. So I would speculate, all right, in my, you know, I could go on for hours about this, guys. I could go on about Russian history for hours. I would speculate that Vladimir Putin absolutely, at a bare minimum, wants to restore the 1960 Soviet Union land borders. Now, Ukraine was an existential threat. Ukraine was an existential threat. How? Ukraine's not been an existential threat. This conflict in Ukraine started in 2013 with the Maidan Revolution. If you guys want to go and check that out, it's the Maidan Revolution. It was where the Ukrainian government, the parliament of Ukraine, had voted for more economic ties to the European Union. At the last minute, the then president, Viktor Yanukovych, who was massive mates with Putin, Viktor Yanukovych, at the last minute, he signed a different decree giving them more economic ties to Russia. Now, you can imagine being a young Ukrainian and you're looking over the border at Poland and you're seeing those people get paid 3-4 times more salary than you. They have a better way of life. They have better rights. They're not getting sent to prison all the time. And you think, right, I want a better life for myself. So that's what started the Maidan Revolution in 2013. Absolutely, that's what started. Putin seized the moment, and then he went into Ukraine and annexed Crimea, the Donbass, and then downed the MH, was it MH17? Yeah, and then downed MH17. Now, what aggressive acts prior to Putin invading Ukraine did the Ukrainians do to Russia? I'll tell you guys now, 0. There was no aggressive acts to Russia before Russia invaded. You know, and they're facts, guys. They're facts. They're like, that is a perfect timeline of like what happened in this Ukraine warfare. Obviously, then you fast forward to 2022. There was the main Russian invasion, you know, and people get change what happened. People change the timeline of events. Right, guys, I'm going to jump down because this live stream is getting a bit longer. User FW3 is saying history is a lie. You're right, mate. History is a lie. And we live in a mesh universe, guys. We live in a mesh universe, and the past, the future, and the present, it's all happening together because we are living in a computer simulation and everything is happening all at once. Remember, NASA did some studies where things in the future where thoughts in the future can affect events in the past. You are absolutely right, guys. History is a lie. Events in the future can affect thoughts in the future can affect thoughts in the future can affect events in the past. Yeah, I said that. Chris is saying, all I know is Zelensky and those European leaders aren't smirking too much anymore like they were at the start of the war. Do you know what? That's actually right. I think you're right there. I think the realization is here now. I really do, guys. I think the realization is here of what is about to be upon us. According to Grok, Russia targets 1,000 T-90s by 2028. Yeah, the guys, look, the amount of stuff that the Russians produce is phenomenal. It really is phenomenal. History is less important than legend. I feel like I should be like a legend, like a symbol of the raven, like an eternal symbol of the raven that turns into a legend. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close this down now. I'm going to close this down. The crux of this live stream is I've just been sharing with you guys that video from the BBC. I've never shared with you guys a video. I'm going to be sharing with you guys an article. I'll get it right. I'll be sharing with you guys an article from the BBC. Look, guys, for those of you who've been on the comments saying, oh, Sean's going off the BBC. Yes, I know the BBC is a bit crap, and I know a lot of their stuff is biased. when I see something good, you know, and, you know, I get it, you know, it is mostly bad, but when I see something that is, you know, hitting the points, I'll share it with you. Which, you know, that did hit all the points. I do think we've been primed for some sort of conscript. It's not going to be called conscription, but I can't think of a better word. It's either going to be, you know, military recruitment, voluntary military service, national service. We need more men. All right. Basically, we need more men. The main takeaways of this that you guys should consider are that the Russians are producing more tanks in 1 month than Britain have. And we're not producing any new tanks. Yes, okay, there's drones, there's air power, there's artillery, there's a lot of things to take into consideration. All right. So, you know, it's not as easy as saying, and I get that, guys. I really do. I get that. The sheer numbers don't add up, guys. The sheer numbers don't add up. And from my estimates, some estimates are a lot lower. Some estimates say that Britain only has 8 days of ammunition. I'm saying that that Britain would only last 14 days if there was a full-scale hot war with Russia. And again, it wouldn't start like that. It would start slow. There'd be a ramp up. We'd buy ammunition. So, you know, but with current stocks, current manufacturing capacity, we have about 14 days of ammunition to fight the Russians. And I don't think we're going to beat them in 14 days, guys. It's not going to happen. I'm going to close this down now, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, guys, for the members, for those guys who become members, I'm starting to do members-only videos again now because I totally forgot. I fell off the wagon again, but I am going to start doing members-only videos. So if you guys want to consider becoming a member, guys, I really appreciate that. I give you guys all the updated information. This is just confirmation of what I've been saying over the last year. You know, the BBC are saying it now, and they are really biased and woke. So if the BBC are saying what I was saying over a year ago, what I'm saying about next year, we're going to look back at 2020. In 2026, we're going to look back and we're going to be like, wow, things weren't so bad. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close this down now. You guys have been fantastic, good-looking, intelligent, articulate, some fantastic thumbnails, and I will see you guys back at 8 because I'm on live 10 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock in the evening. I may continue on this evening, guys. Anyway, I'll see you later, and I bid you good morning.